Welcome back, recruits. I'm Chris Nance with the Northern California Ghostbusters. And today, we're back with another HasLab how-to. This time, we're showing you how to upgrade the speaker in your HasLab Proton pack. Let's get going. Stop me if you've heard this before. I am gonna take the motherboard off of this pack, just to start with. And because it is slow and tedious, and I've already recorded a video of me doing it like twice now, we're just gonna put a link to the how to do that, and through the magic of editing. Now that we've taken the motherboard off, we have access to the stock speaker here. You can see it's mounted to a particular bracket in the back. It's got a little piece of tape on the top to kind of keep it from vibrating. But this is the whole bracket that we want to remove. And then we want to desolder these two wires. So first of all, I'm going to get to this screw here, and then this screw here.
Now there's another screw that's not part of it. It just looks like it is. That one, you want to do the two at the top.
Yeah, you want to.
It's hard to see on the camera, but I'll mark them with the little circles there and there.
So.
You got that for me, Chris?
Yep. I think. There it goes. Do I even? With those screws taken out of the bracket, we're going to take this over to our resident electrical engineer, Scott Morgan.
Hi, I'm Scott Morgan. I'm with the Northern California Ghostbusters, and I'm going to show you how to desolder some wires.
So Scott, tell us about what kind of soldering iron you're using.
So I just have the Xtronic 4000 series. These are sold together. It kind of comes in like a little kit like this. It's got a little place to put your soldering. It's got a little place to put your soldering iron itself. It's got a little sponge thing. This is actually a cutout of it's an actual sponge we cut up and put in here, and because it's better than the sponge it comes with. But anyway, yeah, this thing is a good kind of entry-level soldering station, soldering iron, couple duo thing, and yeah, I'd recommend it. It's been pretty good so far. You can switch out your soldering tips, and it's lasted for me up to now. Just invest some time reading a little bit about some basic soldering, because that is the real difference between how long this thing will last, and you want your tip nice and shiny like that. You can easily get them online anywhere. Xtronic's website, you can get them on Amazon, everywhere. This is a popular brand. It's recommended by this EEV blog, which is like an electronics blog thing. That's where I got the recommend for this.
Okay.
So I'm just using a regular tip. This is like the standard tip. It's just kind of like a regular point. So right now I just turned on the soldering iron. It's going to heat up. It's going to get about a little over 800 degrees Fahrenheit. I can switch this. It's kind of a neat feature on this. I can switch it between Celsius and Fahrenheit, but I like it Fahrenheit because it's America. We want to wipe off the tip of the soldering iron at first with our sponge. You get it lightly, you get a damp sponge. Basically, if you just let the soldering iron stay hot and just let it sit here, it'll start oxidizing, and it'll basically what that means is that it's going to be hard for the solder to melt, and it'll impede the heat transfer that the soldering tip can do. The soldering iron can send to whatever you're trying to melt. So now we're gonna take these two soldering wires here, these yellow wires, and I'm gonna take them off. I'm gonna desolder them. What I'm gonna do is basically just get the solder really hot and pull off the wire.
Okay.
Nothing super fancy. Okay, so I have my little pincers here, because I could grab the wire, but the wire would get hot, probably. Of course, I don't plan on doing this for very long, so it shouldn't get that hot. There we go.
And you just kind of pull gently, and then it'll pop off when it gets hot enough, right when it melts.
Yeah, there we go. Yep.
Beautiful.
And there we have it.
Thanks, Scott. Now we'll move this back to Chris, and you can remove the plate and install the new speaker, and then we'll be back with you in a second.
Sweet.
Now we have everything free. All you really have to do is pop it back, and it'll come free, just like that. So if you want to use the same the original bracket with a different speaker, you can. It just takes a lot of dremeling and work to make it work. It's easier to basically do what we're going to do, which is we're actually going to go ahead and use a custom bracket made for Greg by Right Coast Creative.
Yeah.
And that's made to fit the much larger speaker that we're going to have. And I'll actually even free this thing from its bracket real quick.
And show you the difference in sound. It sounds definitely hard to tell on this kind of video, but it is a big difference just based on the size of the magnet you can see.
Yeah. Look at the size of that thing comparatively. Like,
yeah.
To their credit, they did use a reasonably, like a pretty good quality little speaker. However, it is a very tiny little speaker with a very weak little thing.
And this is a Dayton audio speaker. They make them in 3-inch and 2.5-inch. This is a 3-inch because I wanted a little bit more like power for my buck. I'll leave a link with it. I'll leave a link for this in the description below if you want that. If you don't want to use this brand of speakers, please check that it's compatible with your board as well as the wattage it needs to run. That's really important. So yeah, just be aware of that.
Before you actually mount the speaker to the bracket, you want to take the two screws from the old bracket and get them started on their mounting posts before you get the speaker in the way. There's a big magnet on there, and then the lip kind of gets in the way of everything. But let me just get that a little bit tighter down too, so we've got room.
And these are for you watching. These are the same screws that was holding the original bracket in. So these are not new screws. These are the same.
We're just using the original hardware for this. Greg elected to go with a 3-inch speaker, which is a little bit too large.
It'll still fit and it'll still be compatible, but we have to do it in a weird order.
Yeah. So I'm gonna have to. I think what I want to do is I'm gonna go ahead and mount the speaker bracket first, and then mount the speaker to the bracket once this is in place. And there we are. There's the bracket in place. I just screwed in there and there. Now, so I think I'm going to start with the hard bit first. Well, the first one's definitely going to be the hard one to do.
What type of screws are you using? M3s, I think.
I think they're an M3.
We're using metric screws. They're M3. They're definitely bigger than M2. We don't quite know the size, but if you have a metric screw set, just find the one that fits right. I'm thinking it's M3, M4.
Pretty sure about that one.
You got it?
Yeah, it's not all. I want to tighten it down some more, but I'm just thinking to myself. So I just flipped the pack so it's standing on top of what would be its top, just to kind of give me better leverage over this.
Again, we can't stress enough, you can use a 2.5 speaker. I got a 3 because I am greedy, but 2.5. After the kind of difficulty we've seen with this size speaker, which is still compatible, I would recommend 2.5, just a little easier to get everything in there.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, there it is. Ah. I swear, Greg, every single HasLab how-to, you find a new way to be more awkward.
You're welcome. I'm glad I could make a learning experience for everyone.
Every Proton pack comes with difficulties. There's always some kind of weird tight angle that you have to get to. Last time around, it was getting to some 90-degree angles. This time around, it's a little bit different. We're having to get to these mounting screws that are down around the magnet, and it's a little bit of a struggle because I basically have to get down inside of the pack with a little Allen wrench and try to grab and turn and get everything screwed on top of working it into PLA, which PLA plastic is great. It, however, is it's got a lot of friction to it. It's very grippy material. So while it's good that the screws are not likely to back themselves out at all, the downside is it takes a lot of force to get the screws to drive through the threads.
Okay, so we had to do a really kind of very terribly angled screw in, and as Chris was explaining, and basically we had to get in there and screw this little screw in, and it was hard to twist this around and put pressure on it, and I happen to have these little plastic spacer things, and I put it over the edge, and it allowed me to kind of get more, able to apply more pressure and spin it around with, like, I don't know, more torque or something. Anyway.
More grip.
And so that worked out. So anyway, if you're having trouble, you can put something on the end of your thing, and it might help.
It took a little bit of work, but we finally got it in there. It is fully mounted. We only used 3 out of the 4 mounting screws on the speaker here, but that's okay. That's 3/4 is more than enough there. The only thing left, Greg.
That's fine. That's not going to move it. That's how the other one was too. The other one had a flap.
Yeah, but I had tape to hold it from being too flappy.
Hey, welcome back. So now what we're going to do is we're going to make sure we're going to, this speaker is going to get wired correctly. The original speaker had a positive and negative on it, and so does this speaker, but we want to make sure that it's going to receive the right polarity of DC electricity, direct
and both
current
of
electricity.
them on the board are the same color, so how do you tell, right?
Yeah, and so both the wires are the same color. So before we disconnected the old one, what we did is marked it, and so the red tape means this is the positive lead for this speaker, or for any speaker that would be in here that needs polarized power. So I was having trouble melting this glob of solder right here, and reattaching them the way they were originally attached. So this is a bit of a smaller, less dense piece of metal here, and so I'm gonna just hook it through there and just put a glob of solder there and solder it on. But I want to use some heat shrink. This is 1/4 inch heat shrink. Basically, you can use it to insulate your wires or your connections, whatever you're soldering together, if you're splicing wire, whatever. If you just want to cover something that this looks like it could cover. How it works is, with a wire at least, you can cut it to the size you want, which I'm going to do right now. Oh, there's no good way to get that on camera really, but there we go. You snip it, and then you slip it over the wire. You solder the wire in place, wherever we're just gonna kind of loop it there. And then when we're done soldering, we're gonna slip this over and put a heat gun to it. You can use a blow dryer, that works fine. There's designated heat guns, whatever. I have a really fancy heat gun.
And make sure you're doing it.
You can use a lighter.
Make sure you're doing it away from the board.
Yeah.
We'll say it again, away from the board.
Yeah, be conscious of where your heat is going, because you don't want to burn anything else.
Okay, so we're gonna solder those in and then put the shrink stuff on.
Basically, it was really hard to melt that, so we're gonna put it through here, so it's just kind of like, the wire's through something. And then this is a smaller surface area and density, so it should be able to get hot and be more receptive to solder. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get it a little warm. I think they were saying, like, if you have the right temperature, you're supposed to spend like a second or so heating up your surface, and then you apply some solder. Although I'm having some heat transfer issues, and then you let it melt for a second, and boom, there you go. It's not the best solder in the world, but it is a solder. So, so now I'm gonna do what I said before, which is I'm gonna bring up the heat shrink, and I'm gonna slip it over there. And most everybody maybe has a blow dryer. So I'm using this heat gun. It's kind of like a desoldering station or even a soldering station, but it uses very strong heat and and it blows it out, and you can remove.
It's super like controlled too.
Yeah,
It looks like,
you can remove this. There's different like little nozzles you can give it, but I gave it this one because it's nice and focused. This is used a lot for surface mount stuff, so like little microchips, stuff like that. You can get them loose with this and take them off with tweezers or whatever. That's what this is for generally. But for this instance, I'm going to use it as just regular old heat gun, except I'm going to keep the heat low. As little John would say, get low. So I'm going to turn the heat way down.
Oh, we don't need it to be 300 degrees.
Yeah, you can also turn on the air, turn up or down the air velocity, I guess. But anyway.
So we're going really. That's why we're able to do it at this angle, because it's a very good heat gun.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
There you go. See, look at that, beautiful. You know, it covers it nicely, it's insulated. Like if a wire touched this, it'd be like, oh, there's plastic in the way.
And no shorts.
Yeah, exactly. And it'll help hold the wire in place too. You know?
This is a little larger than what you normally use. It's just what we have, so,
so
they make it different sizes. Everything in the pack's very dainty.
Yes, so remember this is the positive wire. I'm gonna unwrap it and take this electrical tape off. And we already got one wire in place, so we can't mix them up anymore. Yeah, so just for another option, this is kind of like a fitting for a wire that you crimp on. This particular type is called a quick disconnect. And you can really, the distinct feature is you can see these, you know, it's like a bar and these curled under parts of it. On this particular speaker, there are terminals designed for this quick disconnect. Basically, the idea is you slip it on and you can get it off easily. You know, obviously you don't want to have it that easy to get off, but you can probably crimp it a little bit down if you're really concerned about the fit on here, or get even a smaller size.
And then the wire connects to it inside, then heat
Yes.
condenses it, and this is an alternative to soldering.
Yeah, so there's like a little metal hole in there inside this plastic hole, or you know, this plastic encasement around it that insulates it. You know, you basically buy these things by the gauge of your wire. So this is really, you know, high gauge wire, or it's very thin wire. Basically the number goes up as the wire gets thinner. So this is like 22 gauge wire, AWG. So you stick it in here, you stick it in the hole, and then you can crimp it down. I need the wire shielding stripped back a little bit. So
The plastic covering the wire, basically.
Exactly, yeah. Or insulator, whatever you want to call it. This yellow plastic stuff, I need to cut a little bit of it off in order to make it get good contact for this quick disconnect. So,
if you do this at home, be careful. You can rip the wire out of the bottom, and I don't know what's on the bottom of the board yet.
Don't yank, don't yank really hard on this. So when you're stripping, just be mindful of that. And you know, when I'm stripping stuff, I use both my hands. So I have one hand here on the wire, so I don't I have control over the wire and I'm not yanking on it too hard. And if I am yanking on it, I have my fingers here, you know, around it, and that it can mitigate the yanking on the actual, where it's actually connected to the board. There's some exposed copper. There we go. There we go. And yeah, it's sloppy, but the main thing is that I don't want to cut the wire itself.
It's on brand. Sloppy is on brand for Ghostbusters.
Yep, exactly. This is
Just look at Venkman's welding lines on his wand.
It's gonna get covered up by
plastic.
This is DIY.
Okay.
That's what heat shrink is for.
How much do you want exposed for the crimp?
Boom, you kind of want it like that, more or less. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna attempt to crimp this with like these giant electrical pliers. It's kind of semi-transparent-ish. You give it a little tug, you know, to make sure
Just a
that's
little
not just
bit,
gonna pop out. Yeah, you don't want to like try to yank it because, you know. But anyway, you can kind of see in there. I smashed together what was once in kind of a what was once an more open thing. It's now
closed
crimped.
around the wire
Yeah,
to conduct it.
Crimped over the wire. So now would be a good time to test this out and see if it works.
So now that Scott soldered things back together for us, we've got the speaker working. We went ahead and tested that off camera real quick. We're gonna go ahead and put things right back together again. With a new custom speaker mount and a much larger speaker in the pack, there's actually a pair of pegs at the very top inside of the motherboard that are their travel is interrupted, so you can't actually close the pack over top of that new speaker now. So we just went ahead and used a flush cutter, actually, to take those two prongs off the top side of the motherboard there. That should give us the clearance that we need to actually put the motherboard back in place. So it doesn't need to be perfectly flat, flush, but it does need to be trimmed down almost as close to the board as you can get it. And once it is, though, there is definitely enough room for a much bigger, more robust speaker in there.
3 inches, baby.
Oh yeah.
Now we're gonna put the thing back on and show you guys how
We're
it
gonna
sounds.
put the battery cover back on. And that is how you replace the stock speaker in the HasLab pack.
Now I know it's hard for the people at home to hear a difference, but there's so much more bass to this speaker and like texture and like depthness than the other
It's
speaker.
got a lot more sound clarity.
We hand
to
me
it.
the speaker, Scott. It's right next to you on the thing. It's that little. Yep.
Yeah. By
Look,
comparison.
yeah, it's just not a great speaker, and it's hard to hear on the camera, guys. But it definitely sounds a lot deeper and clearer than it did before.
Yeah.